Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Uncensored. I'm Marien, your host from Yachts, Mermaids. And today I have First Officer Clarissa on the other side of the screen. And yeah, welcome, Clary.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's great to see you.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So I have met Clary and worked with Clary previously on other boats. So I'm very happy to have her on the show. And for today, what has come up for Clary and I, it's kind of like the mental struggles that we as crew members usually go through, and we don't really share them that often. And I think it's so beautiful, the synchronicities that it is Mental Health Awareness Month. So, it goes well with the topic of the month. So, when I say mental struggles, what comes up for you, Clary?
Oh, there's quite a flood of emotions. I think for me, a big thing is isolation. That's like for me, mental struggles kind of those two kind of go hand in hand. I think it's very, very easy to feel like you're alone in it, and um, no one would get what you're going through or what you're experiencing or feeling. And yeah, it kind of feels like you're on an island on your own little island. Yeah.
So I was wondering, you talked about isolation and that you feel like nobody really, that you feel that people just won't get it. And I'm assuming it's obviously the people outside of the vessel. And I just wonder, like, if you could share some of your own experiences where you felt isolated and how you handle it, and or maybe any other thing that may come up for you.
Sure. Um, I think a big thing for me, well, what was a big trigger was obviously being on boats and working on boats. You know, they can be really long contracts. For me, I've worked on many permanent vessels where, it would be sometimes 12 months before I saw family or friends. And in that period of time, there would obviously be special events or birthdays or anniversaries, Christmases, etc., that you would miss. And I think that, that yeah, that can be really tough for a lot of people, especially for holidays. There's a big feeling of family and community around that. And absolutely being on boats, you get exposed to phenomenal people, all different kind of colorful backgrounds. And I think it's amazing industry for that, and that reason alone. These are people that you wouldn't necessarily have met any other way. But with that said, you don't also get to pick who you're with, and sometimes you can feel like you're on a different wavelength to people. Maybe they don't, necessarily feel the same. Some people put on this bravado that they don't really miss land-based life. And I know, especially for me, I felt quite, I didn't feel like I could talk about things that I felt I was missing out on without sounding ungrateful for the life that I was living at the moment. It's
So
kind of like a
you're
catch
talking
22.
about the fact that you were feeling isolated within the crew, not just
Yes.
the fact that you were just like in a place far away, small crew quarters. Is actually isolation within the environment inside the crew. That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's not always been like that for me. There's been, I've been thrown together with people who've, like I've really, really connected with on a deep level, and I felt like I could really pour out my heart to them, and vice versa, But it's not always like that. Like I say, you don't get to pick who you are thrown with. And while everyone in their own right is absolutely amazing and there's something to be learned from everyone, sometimes you don't have that deeper connection. I think, especially as humans, we crave that connection with people, and it's tough to do it on the phone and to have, those conversations with people who aren't physically with you, because there's some magic in physically sitting down with someone and connecting, and looking into their eyes and sharing intimate, feelings with them. Yeah.
So if you could share a specific uh, moment, struggle, where you felt isolated within a crew environment, and how were you able to overcome that?
Okay. So for me, my mental struggle showed up in a, 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 a lot of physical ways. I became fanatical about the way that I looked and my physical appearance. So I was channeling all of my energy into working out. And then if it wasn't that, I was like heavily restricting what I ate or fixating about my diet. Um, Instead of focusing on the emotions and the feelings that I was dealing with inside, I was channeling them into physical things and placing a lot of importance on how I looked to the world. And yeah, I guess for me, the way that I tried to make peace with what I was going through and try to pick healthy channels, ways to direct that energy was I sat down and made a list of non-negotiables. And I think that's like a very, it's a very personal thing. What works for one person is not the same as the other. But when I really figured out the things that I needed to do daily to help me show up as my best self, um, and I place less importance on what time of day I did it, because being on a boat, that presents challenges in itself. Things are always changing and evolving, and you've kind of got to be on your toes. But the importance was placed more on the physical aspect of doing these things. So if it was, for me, starting my day with quiet time and a cup of tea and just like really grounding, that for me really set my day off. Taking some mindful deep breaths and just having that quiet introspection. It also gave me the time to really like tune in what was going in my head and how I was feeling. Journaling was a big one too, even if it was just one page of free writing, just getting everything out, being able to transmute that and put it onto paper actually helps you to make sense of a lot of the complex things that you're feeling, because often they show up as these feelings, but when you put it on paper, they're actually tangible and you can kind of sift through them and go like, oh, okay, well that makes sense. I understand why I feel that way. And oh, I'm really seeking physical connection today and I'm really missing my mom at her birthday. Like, let me make it a priority to physically connect with someone. So me go and hug the chef and like just hug it out and really like get back into my body, and whatever that is that I feel like I'm lacking today, I can make it up in this environment. There's absolutely the platforms to do it. It's just about how you acknowledge those things. Another one for me was yoga, and I know that you share the same passion as me. But even if it was 15 minutes a day, it's easy to boss off. It offers a lot of flexible time. You can spend an hour and a half on your mat. But even if it was the end of my shift, 15 minutes, we're on anchor, I've worked like a 17-hour day, just going and, even if it's just sitting in child's pose, like those three things were key in helping me to face the struggles that I was facing or feeling internally, and to help to channel them. And yeah, I mean, they were huge aids in helping me to feel less alone in my struggles. Another one, which is not a non-negotiable, but just finding someone to talk to is a big one. For me, like chatting to someone on board was pretty tricky, because I think you also feel like you work with these people, and if you there's kind of like an unspoken line, but if you start talking about like your personal life and your struggles, and how does that translate to your professional life too, and like, are they gonna like check you into a mental institute? There's kind of like a fine line. but yeah, I think that was a big one for me when I found someone that I could really talk to and connect with without judgment. um, it's funny how you find people are often facing the same things and feeling the same way as you, but they're maybe also in the same predicament where they don't want to be vocal about it because they fear judgment. So I think from that perspective, when I took a step back and looked at it like that, I was like, we're all going through the same thing, and it needs to become more widely spoken about and acknowledged. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. So a lot of things were running through my mind when you're talking. So I'm going to try to come back to all of them.
Okay.
And so one thing that came up for me was, I was wondering, I understood that the first thing that you realized was that you became aware of, how the emotions that you were feeling were being channeled in a not so beneficial portal, gateway. So that's awareness right there, right? So that's like the first key to it. Because if you're not aware of something, you can't change it. And then you said that, you realized you had all these emotions and they weren't, you weren't really attending to them. That's why you were focusing uh, on this topic, I guess, in the body image. So my question is, I wonder what were those, if you may share, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
what were those emotions and feelings behind that took you to obsessing over your body image?
Okay. Well, this is quite a broad one for me. I think there's it's multifaceted, what contributed to it. As you know, the industry in itself, I mean, it does place a significant amount of importance on, the physicalities and the way you present yourself. So I think that in itself put a lot of pressure on my shoulders. I felt like I needed to fit into, the kind of mold that is sort of the norm for this industry, like really petite and well manicured. And then another one for me, I think this comes from, well, I know it comes from a sense of insecurity. I've been a very insecure person for all of my life, and I have imposter syndrome, and which I'm making peace with slowly. But I've always felt like I've gotten places in my life, and I maybe don't necessarily deserve to be there, even though I've worked my butt off to be there. So yeah, I constantly feel like I'm trying to make up for my shortfalls, even though I'm like, we're all absolutely perfect as we are. I constantly felt like I had to make up for something that was of lack within myself.
Okay, so I'm basically wondering, you talked about that you felt a lot of pressure with the
Mm-hmm.
physical side of things, the appearance, the body image, through, what yachting girls should look like. So my question is, where does this belief system of what a girl in yachting should look like actually was installed from on your side? Was it magazines you saw and you thought, okay, that's what I should look like? Was it, on the internet? Was it somebody or many people talking about the fact that this is how girls should look like, or this is what the industry expects of you? Or was it actually the fact that maybe you were on an interview and the first thing they said, what's your hair color? What's your size? I just wonder, like, what's, the background in that? Because everybody has a different,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
It's a couple of those things actually. I think it even dates back to when I did my courses 6 years ago, and the importance that was placed and emphasized back then. Before I'd even joined the industry, there was this immense pressure to look and act a certain way and to be a certain size. I think it kind of backdates to then, and then carries forward to, yes, interviews that I've been on and even jobs I've been hired for. Where I've had comments from, agents like, oh, they're actually looking for someone, a size below that, or or being on a boat and having the captain say, if you go over a size 8, and then I mean even to present day where there's banter in the crew mess, or in the deck department especially, like there's a lot of things that get said, and although they get said harmlessly and it's all banter, obviously for someone who is insecure in themselves and already has these things that have been deep-seated and planted along the way, it can become a trigger for them. So yeah, I think it's a culmination of different things that have happened throughout my yachting career, but I'm sure it's the same for a lot of women, and even men. I mean, there is also a stigma around that too, about being athletic and being built and good looking. But it is the industry, so you kind of know what you're signing on for.
Can you remind me what were the triggers behind when you were like focusing on your body?
For me, it was loneliness. I mean, I really missed family and friends, and as well as my partner who worked on a different boat on the other side of the world. That was a big trigger. And then I guess imposter syndrome, which was I didn't feel really good enough to be in the role that I was in, especially in a position of power. I felt it was I didn't feel like I could instruct people and lead people. I guess those were the triggers for me. So I felt like I had to make up for those shortfalls by looking aesthetically pleasing.
Right. Yeah.
Go figure.
No, so that's interesting, because everybody obviously channels it differently. And, we have done a lot, not a lot, but a few episodes on body image, and because it's something that keeps coming up, and obviously something that most of the people are struggling with, but not really sharing, like eating disorders and all this stuff. And I wonder, was it just, when you decided unconsciously, probably, I'm going to choose to just, focus on my physical image, was it because was something that you could control?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And did
100%.
you actually in the past had issues, or let's call them issues, through body image? And that is something that it obviously gets triggered very quickly, and then that's the first door you take, to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I mean,
it goes beyond before yachting.
Yeah. I think, I mean, especially this day and age, I mean, we're bombarded with these images of and these expectations of these perfect, women. So I think even from a young age, that was already embedded in me, and I think you constantly have struggles, and I know friends of mine who also struggle with body issues. So yeah, for me, it has been a common trigger that has come up in my life whenever things just feel like they are really out of control and my anxiety levels are like through the roof. I feel like that is the one thing that I can really hone in and focus in on, and it does give me a sense of control when everything feels like it's
and then how long did it took you between realizing, okay, I'm out of control, even though I'm trying to control this body image, and I'm not focusing really on what's being called to my attention, and those were your feelings and your emotions, that now you were just talking that the fact that you were feeling lonely and you weren't with your partner and your family, and that you didn't feel that you were good enough for the position that you were actually work your butt off to actually to achieve, And yeah, so I wonder, like, how long was that period for you where you were down that spiral, and when you all of a sudden, and what really got you to the other side of, like, to say, okay, I need to almost like, when did you hit bottom,
Yeah.
right, where you said, okay, I can't do this anymore, like I need to change something, and that's when you started implementing all the tools that you have learned in the past, journaling, taking time to ground, have a cup of tea, all that, your yoga, all that stuff.
Um, I think it happened sporadically throughout my yachting career, and then about the last year or so, things just kind of really sped up until it felt like it completely just it took over my life. And I guess when I hit rock bottom, so to speak, um, it just hit me one day. I was in my cabin alone, which I spent a lot of my time. That was like the new norm. I've isolated myself completely. I very rarely interacted like with the crew outside of work hours. It was very much just like me time all the time. And I don't know, I can't really pinpoint what triggered it, but I just had this epiphany where I stopped and I had like this out of body experience where I looked down at myself and I was like my own little island. I'd completely stranded myself. I like kind of unconsciously pushed people away and stopped making efforts to interact and to be social, and I guess for me then I thought to myself, what have I done? What am I doing? This is not living. Like, this is not, in alignment with who you are. I am a very social person and I thrive off being around people, and that human connection is a huge one. It's one of my, my love languages. So I guess when I noticed that all these red flags, that I pushed everything that kind of made me away, then I really decided it was time to kind of pivot and to try and do the work to heal myself. And it didn't come naturally. I didn't all of a sudden have all the tools, but by listening to a lot of podcasts, reading a lot of self-improvement books, just being vulnerable and open with people and saying, look, I think I've messed up and I've gone wrong. And I'm kind of struggling to find my way back. Just being, raw with people, just helped me to gain perspective from the outside, because often you're looking at something from one viewpoint, and when you speak to people, it opens up a multifaceted way to look at things. And also, in some ways, it helped to heal some of my insecurities, to be told, like, you are seen and you are loved and you are enough, and I don't seek praise. That's a big one for me. I don't look for praise or validation, and I kind of shun it when people give it to me. I kind of brush it off, and but everyone needs it, obviously in moderation, but you do need it to feel seen and accepted and cared for, and all of those
I
things.
love the fact that you went to the other extreme where you isolated yourself like a little island, and you call it me time, and then it was like, oh no, she's just having her me time, like whatever, when in fact you were doing exactly the same as somebody that goes out drinking, binge drinking every day. Is just the opposite of the spectrum. But at the end of the day, both of it is actually the same thing, where people are just avoiding what's coming up for them. Some people avoid it by isolating themselves and not drinking and just like me time, me time, me time, and not socializing at all.
Self work and self-care.
Exactly. And that's just a facet, or whatever you want to call that. And then like a wall, and then the other wall where it's like, everything's fine, I'm just gonna drink, like, this is who I am, blah 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 blah. So it's really important for people to understand, like, just because somebody is physically taking care of themselves and, you know, eating healthy and having a lot of me time, that doesn't mean they're okay. They could be in a very vulnerable position where they do need help. So I love the fact that, you know, you are sharing your story, because it
Yeah.
really helps understand other crew members, you know, to keep an eye on different perspective of how that struggle may be coming, you know, because people may think, oh no, Clary's not struggling, she got her shit together, you know, when in fact you were fucking struggling, you know. And then like they would think, oh, this one's struggling because he can't keep, you know, his hand off the beer, you know. So it's really it's fascinating to see, you know, the both sides of the spectrum, you
Yeah.
know. And I don't think anybody has ever really shared with me, you know, your, you know, your perspective, you know, and how you went through like this complete opposite of like, yeah, I'm gonna do me, do me, do me, and in fact it was, you know, just really pushing away from what was actually coming up. So is there, is there anything, and you know, I love the fact that you said, you know, this is not something that just happened and then it got fixed. It has been something that you have been working on pretty much all your life. Yachting, you know, speak things up as usual, because it's like a very a specific type of environment that yeah, just it's good for it in a sense. I think like yachting is great for doing inner work, because oh my god, it's just like woo,
Oh,
shows you your mirror right there.
yeah. Yeah.
So, and then the last year, you felt like it really took a toll, and that's when you decided, okay, that's my bottom. I'm gonna start shifting, and you know, doing yoga, listening, asking for help, which all that's great. And then now you are also studying in between boats naturopathy. You said, which
Mhm.
is really awesome. So I kind of want to know, in that sense, maybe like what is naturopathy for those that don't know, and what advice can you give us, you know, like I don't know, 3 tips on how to bring more of a natural uh, medicine stuff into our mental health.
Okay. Um, so a little bit of that was broken up, but I'm from what I did catch, I'm hope that I answer everything that you just asked. Um, so from a natural perspective, how to bring that in to help um, with mental health, I'd say there's a variety of different things. I mean, you can go as deep as even into what we eat, you know, diet, and you know, the role of food and how that affects our emotions and our, you know, our hormonal balances, and even that has a role to play. Um, but I think, I mean, I swear by essential oils, but they are very underrated. You know, for me, you have to find something that really clicks with you. But you know, just picking up an essential oil when I'm feeling like maybe a little listless or a little low, and just like especially sweet orange, and just smelling that is like an instant pick me up. And if I know like I'm being triggered and I'm having a bit of an off day, you know, I will try and surround myself with all the smells that really ignite like those really good happy emotions. And I will try and make sure that I stick to my non-negotiables. I, you know, add more emphasis on taking mindful deep breaths throughout the day, like whether I'm, you know, outside gardening, like I will stop and take a deep breath, and try and make sure that I implement more moments of awareness and presence in my day, um, rather than just being on that cycle that kind of runs away with that mental dialogue that tends to run away with me on my off days. Um, yeah, I'd say those are 2 big ones.
And I forgot about that. And I'm glad you brought it up, which was the non-negotiables, which I totally agree. We need to have boundaries, and that those boundaries, we tend to think that they're outside of us. You know, I need to have boundaries with the mate. I need to have boundaries with my mother. When in fact, yes, there may be those, but you also have to have your own boundaries with yourself. And I love
For
the
sure.
fact that you sat down when you hit bottom and you said, okay, what's my negotiables and what's my non-negotiables, you know?
For me, like a negotiable would be just to like be gentle on myself, to allow like that leeway to be gentle. And if I just want to sit in child's pose that day, that's totally okay. To place less importance on, you know, working up the sweat and burning calories and feeling like I push myself, but to just being mindful and that my body just wants to, you know, just be in that position for 45 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever it is, and not being regiment or hard on myself because of it.
Hmm. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think it has given us a lot of insight of what, you know, what mental struggles are like and what mental health really looks like, because a lot of people think, you know, it's depression and it's all these very extreme things, you know, like I want to, you know, kill myself or whatever. And those are real, you know, like, 'cause, hey, I have been through them. But there's also very, um, so many other ways that is presented that we just brush it off because we think, oh no, that's just life, you know? And of course it is life, but it doesn't mean that it is not part of somebody going through a mental health issue, you know? And I think because it's so, you know, underrated, if that's even the correct word to use, we just don't become aware of it, even ourselves, you know, within ourselves. So, you know, I think what I take from this episode is to really catch yourself and become aware of where are you being extreme with yourself, you know, whether that be on the positive healthy side of things or on the unhealthy side of things that we perceive as unhealthy, you know, or that we perceive as healthy. Just really extremes, like where is, because when there's no balance there's something off, and that should be the, like the key to understanding, okay, maybe there is something going on here that I may not be really paying attention to. So the question is, you know, where are you not in balance? Where are you playing extremes in your life? And then from there, obviously, awareness comes, like you happen to, you know, and then, you know, all the other good stuff happens. And I think you share very simple tools, you know, listening to podcasts, asking for help, grounding yourself, doing yoga or whatever it is that brings you back into your body, you know, because we're constantly in the mind. So coming back to the body, that's where we're grounded. So yeah, so thank you so much. And is there anything else you want to share before we wrap it up?
Oh, sorry, I just missed all of that.
Don't worry.
All I heard was wrap it up.
Yeah, you'll hear it soon. Basically, I'm praising you, so take it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think you summed it up perfectly. You know, the takeaway from this is that, you know, we put depression and anxiety and all of these things in different boxes, and we think they look certain ways, but they really manifest in all sorts of different ways. And I think a good way to tackle that with regards to people around you is to just exercise compassion. You know, you don't know what people are going through, and just in the way that you talk to them and interact with them, you don't, you know, to acknowledge that they could be facing something that they're not being vocal about. And then the same with yourself, to be compassionate with yourself, because you can go to the extreme of, you know, putting too much pressure on yourself to achieve these goals and to be certain things. And then awareness, you know, and that's just being mindful of what's present and what comes up for you, instead of trying to steer away from them and channel that into maybe healthy or unhealthy ways. So yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly.
Thank you. So guys, remember, if you do need help and you don't feel like you can talk to your crew members, you can always go to the yachtsmermaids.com directory, the support directory, and you will find people who are actually part of the yachting industry who are helping other crew members like you go through this, you know, journey that we're all in, really, which is just finding ourselves and understanding ourselves just a little bit more. And so yeah, you're not on this alone, and you can always reach out to me. You can reach out to any of the people in the directory, and of course you can reach out to your family, friends, and crew members, so if you feel that you can be supported, obviously. So thank you so much, and yeah, hopefully I have you again on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's been so lovely to catch up with you.
Bye, guys. Until next time. And yeah, I'm Marien, your host for Uncensored, a Yachting International radio show.